is going on, guys? Eric Janicki here with another video. So if you guys want to learn how I closed over $2 million in high ticket fitness sales using this exact script, do not click away. Also, if you are not subscribed to this channel yet and you're looking to grow or scale your online business, do not wait. Click that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. It's absolutely free to you. I'm going to be putting out a ton of amazing content on this channel. So if you guys have not watched, I put out a video just a week ago on the 4 steps that you want to start thinking about in terms of growing an online 7-figure business. So if you haven't checked that one out, go and check it out. But without further ado, let us hop into the 7-figure sales script that I've used to close over $2 million in fitness sales. And that little plaque behind me is a little proof to show that. So without further ado, let's get into it, guys. So what I wanted to start out before getting into the script was actual guiding principles behind actually being successful at sales. And it really doesn't have to come down to the scripting. It has to come down to the emotion, basically how well you listen, how well you ask questions, how well you follow up. These are the things that are going to make you successful, not having some bulk script that'll help. It gives you a framework, but the most important thing I'm going to run through with you. Number 1 is energy, guys. The energy that you bring on the call is essential to your desired outcome. If you bring subpar or nervous or disinterested energy to the call, you'll be sure to lose the deal. So I'm going to give you guys a quick example of what this looks like, right? So let's say I've got a potential lead. I've been messaging with them. They want to lose 30 pounds. And this is how I get on the phone with them. Hey, Michael, how's it going? This is Eric. We've been messaging. Yeah, no. Is this still a good time to chat? Okay, cool. Yeah, man. How's your day going? Like, that energy sucks, right? So what I want you to do is hit it with, like, see the difference between this. Michael, what is up, man? I've been looking forward to this call all day. I know we've been messaging back and forth. Super excited to talk to you about your goals. How's your day going, man? You see the difference? I know it sounds cheesy. Another little trick I use is actually smiling. You see how my tone changes when you just fake it? It's like fake it till you make it, guys. Get on the phone with a smile. I don't care how your day is going. Reset. Give yourself 5 minutes for that call to review the person's details and get in the right headspace to bring good energy to the call. Because if you bring that first Eric energy that you saw, I'm 0% chance going to close that deal. You need to come with good energy and make them feel nurtured and want to actually work with you. So that is point number 1. So always open with a warm welcome. Ask them how their day is going, commiserate, basically ask them details about themselves. Always try to relate with them, right? So let's say this potential client, Michael, was like, I'm like, where are you from originally? And they're like, oh, I'm from Chicago. I'm like, oh my God, I'm from Chicago. Whereabouts in Chicago? Or, oh yeah, I visited Chicago. I love that city. Like, whereabouts do you live? How long have you been there? Are you in school? Like, whatever it is, just be genuinely interested in their story. Spend 3 to 5 minutes just getting to know them, because if you just go straight into let's go brass tacks, you're not going to get them to like you enough to buy a high ticket program from you. So likability is a big part of the equation. Second part of this is truly listen. I like to write down some of the personal details they're giving me as we go, because then I can regurgitate them. It makes them feel heard and listened to. Let's say they tried keto with another coach 3 years ago. If 25 minutes later, I'm like, yeah, so I know you mentioned 3 years ago you did keto, and I want to avoid those same mistakes. They're going to really feel that oh shit, Eric's actually listening to me and regurgitating information that I told him 20 minutes ago. So he really is taking the time to actually listen. That is very important, guys. So second biggest thing in sales is having a short memory span. It's imperative that literally you go into the call basically wanting to close, but if it doesn't close, they're a follow-up or they don't come in at all, and that's fine. You cannot dwell. I used to get killed by this, especially starting out. I would spend an hour, somebody was a great call. They were super amped about the program. And I got to the price and they're like, I just don't think that's worth it for an online program. And obviously I'd push back, but I would kill me. It would literally eat at me for days. I'm like, oh, that person was such a good fit for my program. I could really have helped them. And I would take that energy into other calls. And the best way I can liken this, if you guys like baseball, there's a position called a closer that comes in usually in the 8th or 9th inning to close out a game. And they have to have that equally short memory span. Yeah, it's great when they close a game, it's 3-2 and they win. But that one time that they're up 4-2 and they come and blow the save, that is a big deal, but you have to have a short memory span. Because you come out the next night and you let that affect your performance, it is going to be a downward spiral and you will no longer be a closer in MLB. So what you need to do is wipe the slate clean. I have had days where I've had 6 or 7 calls back to back. I've had one that hasn't closed and I've gone right into the next one and closed it, or closed 4 in a row, because I'm like, you know what? That one's done. I'll put them in my follow-up process. They may come in a month, 2 months down the road. That's something that really helps me mentally, is thinking about every lead as a follow-up. So if somebody doesn't come in today, I've had so many leads that come in 3, 4, 6 months down the road. If I nurture them with email sequences, value-driven content, following up with them, having follow-up calls, seeing how they're doing, being genuinely interested in how like things are going, that's where people come in. So if you have that mentality of, oh, these people might come in 2, 3 months down the line, it lessens the blow of them not coming in right that second, which always sucks, but you got to have that short memory span. All right. 3, I've kind of mentioned, is follow up. Most of the time, a lead will not close on their first call. It is important to continue to follow up with that person over the coming weeks and months. So what I like to do is add them to, if you guys don't have what's called a CRM, which basically is client relationship management system, which you can organize your leads in. If you're just starting out, you don't need that. I would just suggest doing a Google spreadsheet where you put all your leads in there, whether they've been contacted, and then basically have a drop down whether follow-up is required. You can highlight them, and then you can just go through that list and you can reach out to those people 1 month, 2 months down the line. Also, if you have like something like a MailChimp, you've garnered their email addresses, you can send them, trainings that you're doing in your Facebook group or some new free thing that you're giving out. And that's just a good way to keep the lead warm. So follow-up is extremely important in sales, guys. I know it's fun when you get somebody on the phone, you spend 45 minutes with them. They're like, oh, here's my credit card. That's great. Like, it happens sometimes, but you're going to get a lot more people that are like, oh, that's a big investment. I got to talk to my wife. I got to talk to my husband. I got to look at my finances. I got to see how this is going to fit in my schedule. Like, there's going to be people, like probably 50% plus, unless you're just an insane closer, are going to be follow-up deals. They might close a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later. They just got to really like sit on it and think about it, because this is a big investment for most people. So don't get discouraged if they don't close right away. Next is compassion. You must put yourself in the potential client's shoes and feel what they are feeling. If you're not the best fit for what they need, refer them to a better option. Taking on anyone and everyone will not serve you or your business. So I know this is a tough one, because if you get somebody on the phone, you spent the time in Messenger, you spent 45 minutes with them, and you just don't feel like they're correct fit, or they're not ready, or they're not invested, not financially, but if they're not invested with their, like, you can just tell they're not going to work for it. They got a lot of preconceived notions. They're like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You have to deep down, as a good business person, and honestly, just as a good human being, redirect them. Say, hey, you know what I think would be better for you is if you go and try to just join a gym and like get on a plan for a month or 2, see how that feels. Circle back with me when you feel like you've gotten some strides in. It's not going to be likely most of the time, but you're going to have to understand when your program's not right for somebody. So let's say somebody has some like severe underlying that you don't know how to work with. Let's say like Hashimoto's, or like thyroid issues, or let's say somebody has hormonal imbalances and you just don't know how to work with those people. It's not fair to take their money, guys. Be better than that. It's going to hurt your business, because you're going to bring them on. They're going to pay you all this money. They're going to think you're God. They're going to think you're going to fix them, and you don't know how to. So for example, like we have people that come in that have a ton of pre-existing conditions. We're like, we think you'd be better served, and we'll refer them out to basically a high-level blood work company that basically reconciles hormones, suboptimal thyroids, things like that. And we're like, dude, spend your money on that first and then circle back to us. But that's just good business. And I mean, you guys don't have to take that advice, but I'm just telling you, your business will thrive if you follow on those moral principles. Okay, next thing is getting reps. Sales is a reps game like anything else. You will suck when you start. That's a fact, but with time, you will improve. There's no way to get better than to get yourself out there and to practice. That's why I suggest starting with a warm audience as opposed to cold traffic, because it'll be easier to close and you'll be more comfortable with them. What I mean by a warm audience, guys, is let's say like in-person clients you've worked with, old clients you've already worked with, people that maybe you've like sent programming to, friends and family, somebody that already knows you and trusts you to a certain degree. That close and that conversation is going to be so much easier and more natural than somebody who's never heard about you, that you cold DM off of Instagram or get into an ad. So start with your warm audience. It'll help you get better at your process, just because like anything else, starting out, I was terrible, right? I was doing all the wrong things. I was selling the process. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be doing metabolic scaling. We're going to do a 4-day split where we're going to be doing mostly hypertrophy training, time under tension. I'm like, looking back, I was like, oh my God, I'm an idiot. But, and we'll go into why you don't want to go through those things. But I sucked at sales, but I was perseverant. I got better and I was super fucking likable on the phone. I came with that energy. So even though I sucked, I would close a lot of deals at first, but all of these things started improving and my close rate just went up astronomically as I started to follow some of these principles. All right. Next thing is having a great framework. So the best thing about sales is when you don't even have to pitch, right? If you are so good at asking great questions and nurturing the lead and making them like you to the point where they don't even care what you pitch them, that's the best. That's how you get really fucking good at sales. So number one is asking great questions. Really dig at the deeper why of their goals and why this is the right time. So the reason that you want to ask the why, because everybody has similar goals, right? Everyone wants to lose weight, look better, feel better, like be more comfortable looking at themselves in the mirror, be stronger, whatever it is. Like all those goals are very kind of in line, but the why behind those goals is always going to be different. If you are a mother of 3 that's never really had her body bounce back after kids, that's a very different goal or why behind their weight loss goal than, a guy in his 20s who just got out of college and was eating like crap for 4 years. Like you see how like the why is very important, because if you can get them to really understand why they want this, because everybody wants to look better, feel better, right? Lose weight, be less body fat, have more muscle. I mean, guys usually, at least, definitely not women a lot of the time, but the goals remain the same all across the board, but you really have to dig at that deeper why, because if you don't dig at the deeper why and ask great questions, they're not going to be incentivized enough to pay 3, 4, 5 grand for a high ticket online program. They're just not going to see the value. You got to pull those pain points out of them. So let's say you're talking to that mother of 3 let's say the guy out of college, right? Been eating like shit, been focusing on his career. He's 2 years out of school. You're like, okay, yeah, you want to lose 40 pounds, but like, how is this affecting you? How is your energy levels? Oh, my energy levels suck. I feel like I have no motivation. How's dating life been going? I just feel like I've been on the apps. I've had no success. I have no confidence. How is that making you feel, man? Yeah, I feel like terrible. I really want to do this. Like, I really feel like I need a relationship, something stable in my life. I'm still going out and drinking on the weekends. It'd be great if I had somebody to like share time with. Awesome. I definitely feel that. Okay. So like, what would it bring you if you, let's say we lost this 40 pounds and you were then turn around and like we're on the date? See how I'm like starting to pry? I'm getting deeper and deeper into these emotions, which is then going to bring them to a place where like, yeah, I want to do this. Like, I see now why I'm so desperate for this solution. So next thing, part of this is restatements. So making sure that the lead feels heard by repeating some of the goals and pain points I mentioned. So let's go back to the example with the guy 2 years out of college. I'm going to go back and say like, dude, I totally get it. You've been struggling with the dating life. You want to find somebody. You don't feel confident on the apps right now with the way you look, the way you feel. You don't have a lot of energy, a lot of motivation. But you see how I'm taking what he's told me and I'm regurgitating it. That is a very good tactic as a salesperson to make that lead feel heard. Last thing is anecdotal stories. Make what you're explaining to them relatable. Remember that things like metabolic scaling, NEAT, and macros usually sound like another language to the general layperson. Don't get too in the weeds. And this was something I was doing all the time starting out. It's so tempting, right? Because we have all this knowledge, right? We know about like why undereating is so harmful. We know about like why if you're not sleeping, it's terrible for your recovery. You're not going to lose weight. All of these things we know, but we can't get in the weeds with people on our sales calls because they want a solution, right? They're not here to listen to the process. The best example I can give you guys is if I were to hire you to make an ad for Hawaii, what would you show in that ad? I would respond black sand beaches, resorts, cultural experiences, zip lining. But I would never put in that ad, I would never put TSA, like TSA taking your bag, two connecting flights, screaming baby on the plane, losing their luggage, the 2-hour transport from the airport all the way to the resort. Like those are things you're never going to put in that ad because people don't like to be sold the process. They like to be sold the result. Same thing with high ticket fitness. You have to talk about results. So anecdotal stories, one as I always used on my calls was just talking about creating routines and habits and skills with that I'm going to be teaching them along the way. So instead of teaching, like talking about the exact skills themselves, what I'd say is, hey, so remember when you were a kid and you were 2, 3, 4 years old, and your parents would have to remind you morning and night to brush your teeth, let's say 5 years old. And they say, yeah, of course. But when you were 12 or 13, would your parents still have to remind you to brush your teeth morning and night? No, of course not. So that's what the goal is. I want to teach you these new routines, skills, and habits that do become so habitual that they're just second nature to you. So you don't have to feel like they're something that you have to force every single day. Like getting your steps in, going and having a great workout, eating well is all going to become so habitual that after our time working together, you're not only going to get to your goal, but then you're going to have those skills to maintain for the rest of your life. But you see how I didn't get into the weeds of like the exact workouts, the exact nutrition. I just told them like, hey, we're going to make this habitual for you. And that is a really good way by using anecdotal stories to kind of bring the point home. All right, so let's get into the script itself. I'm not going to spend as much time on this, guys. I'll share this with you. It'll be below the video so you guys can download it. But the biggest parts of this is just having structure. So what we want to start with is just greeting the prospect. Hey, this is so-and-so. How are things going? Kind of all the things that we talked about. The next thing we're going to do is like say, are you ready to hop into things? So you want to spend 2 to 5 minutes creating that rapport like we talked about. And the way I like to kind of like transition into the actual sales call part of where we're asking the questions is a very like cool trick I learned. It's basically saying, hey, I want to be respectful of your time. So let's hop into it. So basically you're just like, instead of it feeling like, hey, okay, I'm done talking to you about like random stuff. You say, hey, I want to be respectful of your time. So then it makes them feel like, okay, like he wants to be respectful of my time. So we're going to hop into the actual call itself. So what you want to do is basically preface and say, hey, I'm just going to ask you some questions about your fitness, your goals, where you're currently at, where you want to be, so I can get a better idea as a coach, how I may be able to help you. So first thing is just like ask them where they currently are. Where are they at with their workouts? Where are they at with their nutrition? How has it been working for them? Are you enjoying it? Ask just prying questions in terms of like, how are things going? How are you enjoying it? Those are going to be your base to kind of work off. So then once you kind of get those, you want to start to like think about, okay, let's talk about nutrition. Let's get a rundown of what that looks like. And they see how I have all these follow-ups. What do you mean? How long have you been eating like this? How are your current energy levels? Do you think this is related to your nutrition? So you're basically asking all of these prying questions that are getting them to think about like, oh crap, yeah, my energy is probably really low because my nutrition sucks. Or, oh yeah, probably not where I want to be because my nutrition is all over the place. So what you want to do is then get into the goal. So they basically gotcha. So remind me, what did you say your goal you were working towards was? So it basically brings up the goals. So everyone has a reasoning on why they want to hit certain goals. I'm genuinely curious, why do you want to hit that goal? So that kind of goes back to, like I was saying, why do you want to get to that goal? What is the reason? What is that deeper why? So all of these next questions are kind of prying on that. Are you happy with your rate of progress? What progress would you be happy with? And now what do you think is holding you back from getting there? This is a really good question to ask. Like, what do you think is really holding you back? Because that's what you're going to want to use as ammunition in your pitch to bridge the gap. Okay, so this is an outcome-based question, the next thing. So tell me, how will your life be different once you hit your set goal? This one's a good one because then they get to really think of what are the benefits of getting to their dream outcome going to really have on their life. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to hit this goal? This is a very, very good question because if let's say there are 5, you're probably not going to close the deal. So what you need to do is say, why are you just a 5 right now? And what would make it a 10? So a lot of times they'll bring up like, well, I have a lot of things going on in my life. There's a lot of time. Okay, so like, and then you just keep bringing it back. Like, so like, what would we have to do together to make it that 10? Okay, so receive what they said and widen the gap. So basically you're going to restate their goals to them. And then you're going to ask them if they've basically worked with a coach before. How did that go? And like I said, I'm just kind of blowing through this, guys. So I'm going to provide this to you so you can actually see it. This is the important part. When you get down to your pitch, what I want you guys to do, and these are just examples here, is focus on pillars. This is going to be different than saying like, okay, these are the exact macros I'm going to make you. This is what I'm going to like give you in terms of workouts. We're going to do 3 days of strength training, 2 days of, cardio. Like, no, don't do any of that. What you want to do is keep it very broad. What I like to say is, okay, so what I do is give people a framework custom to where they're at that focuses on what's feasible within their life and gets them to their desired result in the fastest way possible. And so I've created this framework from working with hundreds of people to get consistent results. So what this framework includes is number 1, nutritional specificity. So I'll go into my framework. So for me, that was, and I've gone through this in a previous video, effective goal setting, habit and routine forming, nutritional specificity, mindset coaching, scheduling optimization, stress mitigation, recovery, and supplementation. So I have this whole framework. Each of those things is like 2 to 3 sentences. I'll be like, for example, effective goal setting. So what I want to do for me with you at day 1 is create succinct goals on a weekly and monthly basis that we can start to tackle that are very realistic. One thing that the mistake people make is going 0 to 100, right? They go from not working out at all to working out twice a day. What I'm going to do for you is create a very feasible plan to scale you up to make this very enjoyable and very doable. See how that was very short? I'll go into number 2. Number 2 is creating small lifestyle changes. So we want to create these new habits and skills, like I mentioned earlier in the calls. So you mentioned to me earlier in the call that you're drinking 4 nights a week. So for example, what we could do is start to drop that down to 2 nights a week. So we just want to make these small incremental changes so it's not so jarring, and these will just start to become easier and easier and more habitual. So that's number 2. So you see how these pillars are very short. They're not very specific. I'm not getting into too much detail, I'm not getting into the weeds about metabolic scaling or HIIT cardio or whatever, because that's just going to get them all like worried about like how overwhelming this is, right? Same thing with the ad. If you saw an ad for Hawaii and before they got to the black sand beaches, there was all this, plane rides and crying babies and lost baggage. You never go on the trip, right? So it's the same thing with this. Focus on the outcome opposed to the process. So you guys can go through and create your own pillars based on this script. And then once you get through that, do you have any questions about any of this? It's good to make sure that if they have any questions, you open it up for the opportunity. Does this sound like something that would help you hit the goal that they wanted? And is this something you want to do? This way, it helps with price objections because they've given you the information like, yes, I feel like this could really help me. This is definitely something I want to do. All right, awesome. So where do you want to go from here? So this gives an opportunity to be like, oh, well, I'm definitely like ready to get started. So then you'd say, great. So to work with me for 12 or 16 weeks to hit whatever goal, the investment is $4K. So that's always was what I dropped. Don't give options, drop that. If they say like, wow, that's more than I was expecting to pay, be like, okay, well, I do have payment plans. We can do it. We can break it down monthly, or we can do half and halfway through. You can also create incentives to pay in full. So let's say it's $3,600 for pay in full or 4 payments of $1,000. So this is just a very simple framework. I'm going to do another video on how to handle price objections very specifically, just because I think that deserves its own video of how to work with people when they get to the end of the call and they're like, it just seems more expensive than what I wanted to pay. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was very valuable to you. Like I said, this is the exact framework I used to close over $2 million in fitness sales in like 18 months. So this stuff works, guys. Follow more of the techniques and the energy and the follow-up more than the script. The script's going to give you a guideline, but all of those other principles are going to supersede the script itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're loving the content. I'll be putting out two new videos a week. So we'll see you guys on the next one.